Welcome to Battleground Chats, and this episode we have our end of year special with three of the Battleground directors and me, and Luke, Joe and Peter, who've been with Battleground for the entirety of 2025. And I thought it would be a really interesting chat around what have we all learned through this calendar year. It's been a massive 2025. Lots of things have happened in many different industries, and Luke, Joe, and Peter all focus on different parts of the industries and the risk and resilience world. So I thought it would be an interesting chat, see where it goes. We've never done one like this before. And when the four of us get talking, who knows where it's going to lead. So welcome to Battleground Chats, the three of you. Great to have you with us.
Thanks, Craig. Splendid to be here.
And let's start with a simple one. So what's the biggest takeaway you have seen from your work in 2025? And we'll start orderly. We'll go Luke first, and then Joe, then Peter, and we'll see where it leads. Over to you, Luke.
Thank you, Craig. So I think I've probably got a bit of recency bias here. We've been doing in the last 2 to 3 months post 1 July, a lot of exercising, a lot of exercising. So one of the key takeaways for me, and maybe I'm a bit naive in how exercises are to be performed and how teams are meant to be performing in exercises, but there's been definitely a lack of use of the plans. So there's been a lot of work done as part of CPS 230 over the past couple of years for many businesses, putting together these perfectly crafted, beautifully worded plans. And then we get into the exercise and they don't use it. That's one of the things we do preach at Battleground. So that's one of the areas that we really try and develop plans on a page and those type of things. But that's been a really clear theme for all those exercises. It's amazing the amount of work that's been done, the amount of money that's been spent on developing these plans.
And they're just not used.
And they're not used at all. It is surprising.
And hang on. So on that, so I think that one of the reasons, just so you know, that I developed the plan on a page concept was for exactly this, right? So, and I'll have a case study with Pete. So Pete and I used to exercise together when Pete was at IRO, and it was a constant theme there. Beautiful plans, never used. So we put plan on the page concept together. So Luke, you're seeing what's actually an industry-wide issue, right? Is you have plans. People inherently know the plans, and therefore they rely on their memory rather than the documentation in front of them, which is why we force people down that path, right?
Yeah. And look, I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One of them is that the plans aren't up to date. And I think this is tangential to sort of my next point around this is when we are actually seeing plans used is when they are live, when there's an ability to have up-to-date data. Often you'll pull out a plan and there's someone who's left the organization a number of months ago and they're like, well, that's really useful. So having the ability to pull plans off a system or off a live document, I think has definitely meant that those teams are using those plans more. And also to that point, where you have the ability to identify a system. So a lot of the exercises we do is taking out a relevant software program, an IT system, a dependency, and the ability to actually choose that dependency or choose that system on your phone and be able to identify all the processes that are affected, all the data that's affected, and what you need to do to be able to actually run that process or run that in CPS 230 critical operation. The amount of time spent doing that on whiteboards when it could be done at the click of a button is incredible. And I think when that problem starts to be solved, it'll certainly save a lot of time in business continuity world and exercises. But I think organizations that have the ability to do that, the most up-to-date data, they're keeping track of their business impact analysis in an online platform. You really see a great benefit there in terms of the efficiency as part of exercising, because a lot of the business continuity stuff then is managed. They can manage that, and they can then look at the strategic side and the comms and all those type of things, are more efficient and a higher quality post that. So I think for me, that's probably been the biggest takeaway is the amount of work that's gone into the plans and then the lack of use of them. But then you can see those that have done a really good job, put it into the system, made it a living, breathing document. And they see that they've reaped the benefits of that as part of their exercises. And I'm sure also real world incidents as they do come.
No, that's really interesting. And it's not a new issue, right? So it's how do we continue to spruik the idea of simple plans, keeping them up to date, live data in systems that you can draw on exactly from your phone or from the web, 100%. So let's
Gen
see.
Gen Z now, Craig.
Yeah, Gen Z, yes, spoken like a true Bondi. Joe McD, over to you. What do you think?
Well, look, I think it's going to come as no surprise to anybody who I've spoken to this year. The big takeaway is CPS 230 is now live. Surprise, surprise. It's been coming for a while. And look, I think for me, anyone who I've spoken to or spoken with, about CPS 230, knows that my favorite bit of the standard is paragraph 27B, which I could probably, for those of you who are listening
I think you should tell everyone what that is, Joe.
Who don't know what paragraph 27B is, it's basically understand what it is that you do as an organization, except with a bit more language. Understand your business, because if you don't understand your business, then you have no hope of managing it, either business as usual or in disruption. But you're going to hear me talking a lot less about paragraph 27B in 2026. It's going to be all about paragraph 27C. So I know I'm moving on. I've changed. It's a little bit emotional for me. But that's the bit that talks about you really need to understand the severe but plausible disruptions that could occur to your business and integrate that all the way across the organization. Building on that foundational work, understand what you do. The next step is actually understand what are those scenarios. And to Luke's point around, one of the, why are plans average? I don't know if we can swear on this podcast or not, Craig, but
no, definitely not.
Why are plans average? Because often they haven't really considered the range of potential scenarios. Now, I'm not saying you need to have a plan for every eventuality. We don't have a plan for the aliens landing, but we need to have a plan for the impacts on our organization, and we need to think about that from a severe but plausible perspective. What is the window? How does that actually evolve? And I think thinking more and more clearly about, what are those things that can occur, how they can play out, but also what are the risks? What are the disruptions? What are the contingency events that you may need to work through? I think there's going to be a lot of conversation, around that. So
I think that's not only for CPS, right? So CPS is obviously for financial institutions, but it's taking that risk lens to all industries, right? Yeah. What can we all learn from what APRA's done to the financial services?
Yeah. And I think the other really big takeaway from me around CPS 230, and again, it's a bit of a plug for Battleground, and some of the work we've done recently. So one of our new colleagues, Paul Minter, who's joined us from APRA, and we did a benchmarking on tolerances that were reported to APRA. And we got all of the service level tolerances from about 30 entities. And it was, disappointing to say the least, in terms of the quality of a lot of those service level tolerances. They really didn't demonstrate an understanding of what they needed to do for their customers in times of disruption or how that would be delivered. And I think that's sector agnostic. That's financial services, that's anything. So
but Joe, they've never had to think about that, right? If you think about where you've all worked before, actually thinking about that in a way that you can articulate, write down, and have approved is a new way of thinking, right?
100%.
And so what's been fascinating is watching the journey of your clients is also that idea that for those that were on the project of putting in a new piece of legislation or regulation, they had to get it done by 1 July. They got it done by 1 July as a project. And now, only come November, December, they're starting to think about, now what do we have to do next, right? So one of my big learnings watching you and Luke and Paul with your financial services clients has been how you can put a whole lot of work into getting ready for a piece of regulation or a new piece of legislation, but you have to operationalize that. And I call it the cliff, right? 1 July, all these financial services fell off the cliff, and they're slowly climbing back up to understanding, wow, this is not just a once-off thing.
Yep. Yep.
We have to operationalize it. Operational resilience is what it's called. And now the hard work actually starts, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, well, I think, I was running an AML remediation project a few years ago. And I was always asked as part of that work, it was all about sort of, what's a compliant state? Can we get to a compliant state? It was all about this compliant state. And yeah. I remember blowing my top at one stage in a meeting. I said, compliance isn't a state. It's a lifestyle. And to me, resilience is the same. It's not a state. It's a lifestyle. It's like Queensland. It's a lifestyle. And
like a true Queenslander.
All the decisions you make now contribute to your resilience in the future. But yeah, whether it be good or bad. So that'd be my sort of wish for 2026 would be, resilience, CPS 230 compliance, all of this stuff. It's not a state. It's a lifestyle. And you've got to live that lifestyle in 2026.
I love that. And that's
I have the T-shirt. I do have the T-shirt somewhere.
That is funny. Peter, over to you. Why are you better with the end of 2025?
Well, if you really want the honest answer to that question, we're better with the end of 2025 because it looks like the ashes are all but secured. So I'm very, very happy about that.
Oh,
but
no,
that's a whole
English
that's a
audience.
Whole
I don't know.
Topic, and I know there is an audience cohort that won't like hearing that brutal truth.
We better stay in our lane. We better stay in our lane.
Let's put that to one side. I tell you what I reckon has been the most interesting thing I've seen in 2025. So many interesting things in the resilience domain. But 2025 is the year, I think, where for a lot of organisations, the pennies dropped, that we can no longer cash in on what we learned from COVID.
Oh, interesting.
That was nearly 4 years ago now.
Wow.
Feels like only yesterday if you're a Victorian, like a couple of us, but it's actually more like 4 years ago when it was at peak impact. And my noticing is if I've worked with clients where the last real push around resilience and around planning and all that stuff was in the context of COVID, that's now becoming problematic. It's becoming problematic because business has changed, the processes have changed, the way we do things has changed, the way we deliver the IT in the organisation has changed, the people have changed. There's a whole cohort in organisations now who were uni students. It's no longer this shared experience. And so we all know, and if you've been around as long as I have, you've had points in your career where you've lived the adage of never waste a good crisis.
Yep.
I don't think too many organisations wasted COVID, but what I would say is if that's still your reference point for your resilience practices, it really, it's past the time to move on. That is not the relevant example that it might have been for a little while.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I take it one step further into the cyberspace where, for many years post-COVID, it was all about we must exercise cyber. Finally, 2025, we started to see people going, there's actually other risks that we have that we need to think about, right? Because yes, obviously cyber's a big risk, but if we only have a single focus on it, like we did during COVID about loss of sight and then loss of people, we're actually missing a whole lot of risks.
Yep. 100%.
So, fascinating discussion. Last thoughts for 2025 from my Battleground director colleagues. What's your wrap up 2025 in one word? I'm going to put you on the spot. One word, Joseph, before you go on a cruise with your family. What's your one word wrap up of 2025?
I think the window of plausibility in 2026 is going to be wider than the window of plausibility in 2025. So be prepared.
Ooh, okay. Luke Bondi Smailes, before you dart off to Perth for the holidays.
Can I use 5 words?
Oh, well, Joe used a whole
Joe,
saying,
Joe
so
used,
why not?
Well, Joe doesn't stop talking, so 5 words. Looking forward to a break, and look, I think speaking to our clients, particularly over the past couple of months, and obviously, it's been a long year. I think there's been a huge amount of effort that's gone into the past year, particularly with a lot of our financial services clients with 230 going live, and I think everyone's ready for a break, and I think we're in that boat as well. We're resilient as an organisation, but I think it's always good to reset and have that break. So that's probably my closing sentiments for the year, to be honest, Craig.
Great. Okay, and Pete?
3 words from me.
Yep.
Calm before storm. I think 2026 is going to make 2025 look awfully benign. All the seeds are there. All the geopolitical seeds are there.
Yep. Interesting.
Tell you about my scenario I'm running this afternoon, Pete.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go. Our last exercise of the year, I think, for Battleground Crew this afternoon. But for me, 2025, a lot of work has gone into it. Our clients have gone through a lot. But as Luke said, you've got to look after yourself, right? I always bang on about the hygiene factor. So 2026 for me is going to be about trying to balance everything out, because I think 2025 was ups and downs, a lot of change in the world, a lot of new regulations around the world in financial services and a lot of change in the political space. So 2025 was up and down. Hopefully 2026 is calm, maybe before the storm, but hopefully calm. But for everyone, our Battleground Chats audience, thank you so much for an amazing 2025. We look forward to an even bigger 2026. And to my Battleground colleagues, have a great break. Enjoy the holidays. Whatever you do for them, just be safe, be well, and we'll see you in 2026.
Cheerio.
Cheers.
See ya.
Thanks.